and welcome to the Varietal Show. My name is Rory, and you are watching Varietal, pardon me, Varietal Literature's YouTube page. And what we do here on Thursday nights at 6:30 is we play solo tabletop RPGs. There's a ton of other names for them, and we have what I call a ride-along. And because we're into October, those ride-alongs are horror-tinged, but you know, I don't know. It's a mixed bag as to how horror we get. Sometimes it's just silly references to horror, and sometimes it's pretty intense. We'll see how it goes, because that's the thing. If you're watching this live, there's a live chat here, and you can join in and help write the story by giving little recommendations, and I will try to work in as many as I possibly can find a way to work in. On top of that, we will have some prompts from the game, which I'll describe in a little bit. And if none of that is all that interesting to you and you just want to get to the results of the story, if you're not watching live, down in the description below, there will be a timestamp for various things in the show, where the writing starts and where the story gets read out loud that we came up with, and so on and so forth. GS says, your chin is cut off, or you're shrinking. Yes, I saw that. I was fiddling around with this. I don't really know why it's changed so much, but it has. Okay. Maybe I'm just too zoomed in. I see that Witchery is here. Again, hello, and thank you for watching, Witchery. GS says good evening. Thank you for watching, GS. I see that Genera is here. Well, it's lovely to have you all here again. I'm going to try zooming it out, because obviously some people were concerned about it. I wish I had a remote to do that. Is that too much? That's probably too much, but we'll just leave it as is. Nope, I don't like it. We're zooming in. I can't even reach that. Just a second. I think we're probably just back to where we were. There we go. Okay. Let's get on to the description of the game and the rules, and have ourselves some fun writing. I don't like how it's catching that. Which means it is time for litgames. Litgames is the part of the show, it stands for literature games, where we play a game that has prompts and then we write around it, because that's what this stream's about. It's about writing something in my Google Doc here. And I'm just going to take a minute and describe how the game works tonight, a little bit about the rules. If you're not interested in any of that, you can check the description down below when we aren't live, and jump right ahead to when the writing starts. So the game we're playing tonight is called Treacherous Realm. The Treacherous Realm is the Fey Realm. And the gist of it is you were wandering around the countryside, and you wandered into a basically abandoned house. You slept in a mysterious bed, and when you awoke in a strange realm that we're going to describe through our writing and prompts and so on, but that's sort of the Feywild. And the conceit of the game, which makes it sort of a horror game, is that you are being hunted by what's just called the Hunt. I assume it's a reference to the Wild Hunt, which we know very well on this channel. If you don't know, I did an entire show on various translations of Wild Hunt stories, although it's extremely common. I was really just looking at Germany there, but it comes up everywhere. And that was last year in the beginning of December on Fireside Fairy Tales. Anyways, you're in the Fey Realm and you're being hunted by something that wants to eat you. It uses Wretched and Alone. So if you guys don't know the Wretched and Alone system, that's why there's a Jenga tower behind me. Instead of rolling a dice to see if you succeed at anything in Wretched and Alone, we pull a certain number of bricks, depending on the prompt, out of this and put it on top. And if it collapses, then we're dead, and that's the end of the game. And there's not really much I can do to cover for that. If this goes down, I can't set it up on stream, so that would be pretty much the end of the game. The other things you need to play this game are a deck of regular cards with the jokers removed, a d6 dice, and while I talk about the rules, you tell me, chat, what dice you want to use. There's a sort of, well, whatever. You describe it however you choose. Which d6 do you want to use? You need only one. And you need something to keep count. I'm going to use poker chips, and you need 10 of them, but it says you can use seeds, anything you want. And the reason for that is because the goal of the game is to find a gate, which isn't really a physical thing in the Fey Wilds. It's a thing you sort of find abstractly. And in the literal mechanics of the game, it's an ace of hearts. I think it's one of the aces. And when you get an ace of hearts, when you pull it as a random prompt, you put these 10 tokens on top, and then as the game goes along, you will have repeated opportunities to remove one of the tokens, and if you get all the tokens off it, you have a chance to run through the gate and escape. That said, what I should say is the whole point of Wretched and Alone as a game system is that you don't succeed. This is not really a game about succeeding. So, carrying on now down. I can read you the color text it gives you and so on. I don't think I really need to describe too much more of the rules, but the gist of it is I'm going to roll a d6, and when I roll that d6, that'll tell me how many cards to draw from the deck. And when I draw the cards, I'm going to put them face down, flip them over. When I flip them over, based on the suit and the value, I guess you would call it. I was going to say number, but they're not all numbers. So like an ace of hearts, yeah, there's the gate. Every card in the deck, you know, in the 52 cards of the deck. That's right, 52? Now I'm second guessing myself. Am I getting that number from somewhere else? Is it 52 cards and 56? 52? 56. No? No, I don't trust my memory now. Someone in chat will tell me, I'm sure. Anyways, you take a prompt and you write off that prompt. And sometimes the prompts ask you, GS says 52. Okay, I didn't make that up. Sometimes the prompt asks you to pull a bricks. Okay, that's the gist of it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the live chat, but otherwise, let's get on with the game. I'm going to have a drink of water. I'm going to read you the color text that opens this game. What I want you folks in chat, if you have no opinions on the dice, which it looks like you don't, so green is my fave. If you have an opinion on a name or any kind of identifying traits, we're going to kind of go Victorian era with this, probably. We'll see if I stick with that. Who knows? But if you have suggestions on the name or the character that we're going to play here, now's the time to start putting it in the chat while I read the color text that introduces the game. You are wandering far from home. Perhaps you have already had many adventures, or maybe you have only just been swept off your doorstep by the leer of the road. You mostly passed through lands that bore only a respectable resemblance to the wilds. At some point, while the sun was still high in the sky, you came upon a lonely gate, connected to neither wall nor fence, and unthinking opened it and stepped through with only a slight shiver to mark its oddness. Eventually, weary and benighted, you arrived at a derelict manor house surrounded by rolling hills and pastures. The house appeared to have been abandoned some time ago, its dilapidated interior a frail echo of its faded splendor. You made your way through the crumbling halls to a moldering bed, like the blossoming corpse of some fallen beast. I don't quite understand that imagery, by the way. You were wary, and despite the lack of comfort, you gave yourself swiftly over to sleep. You woke to soft candlelight. The bed was restored, along with all the manor's furnishings. The luscious gilded drapes were drawn back to reveal a woman dressed in stately garments, looking down at you with disgust. She demanded an explanation as to why you had snuck into her chambers, and how a vagrant, such as yourself, had managed to trespass on her lands. Confused, you attempt to vindicate yourself, but the lady would hear none of it. With unnatural strength, she threw you from her manor, saying that she would grant you a day's grace before setting the hunt on you. You are now lost and alone, for the land has changed while you slept. You arrived at the manor through a gentle, if slightly untended country, but now you see that the hills have risen and crowded around. Covered in thick woodland, a shifting silver mist blankets the hollows and dells. A few narrow lanes wander through the narrowing lands, hedged in by thorny briars and dense bracken. You must find that lone gate and escape this strange land before you are caught. Make haste! Okay. Genera says 4 sets of 13. It's admirable that people believe I can do the head math while also doing this stream. I appreciate the vote of confidence in my intelligence, but it is unfounded. Genera says Archibald Crumplebottom the Third. I do like Archibald. Gia says, ha ha ha, who could top that? Susie the Bear Girl. Hello, Susie. Welcome back. Thank you for watching. Yeah, I'm more the type to go for a serious name, but then Genera makes the very salient point. Victorian era is too serious. Needs silliness to balance it out. And Susie the Bear Girl very accurately observes, the Victorian era is misery covered in frills and bows. Now I've got that touch of melodrama in my voice, so it's going to carry right on through to the writing, isn't it? Okay. So we have the setup. They even give us an opening paragraph. Archibald Crumplebottom the Third. What I like is the idea that English last names are often either identify who your father was or identified your trade. And Crumplebottom sounds to me like a trade, so I don't know what that trade was. I'm from a long line of bottom crumplers. All right. See, this is going to be a very serious day. Okay, we're going to roll the dice, and then I'm going to pluck some cards out of them there decks. 5. I will be shocked if we get through 5 prompts. I can't remember if I shuffled this the last time I used it, so I'm just going to do a rough shuffle here. If I can remember how to shuffle. 1. Remember, we're putting them face down. 2, 3. It was 5, right? 4 and 5. Witchery said many are place names. That is true. But Crumplebottom to me is a trade. I mean, I suppose we could go the body route with it. There is obviously a way that you could be a bottom crumpler in that regard. But I mean, in a more higher society respected way, what would be a bottom crumpler? Is that just a masseuse of another name? My grandfather crumpled bottoms, good sir, when you were merely a babe. I will not have you insulting the proud practice of bottom crumpling. Let's play this supposedly horror game. Archibald Crumplebottom. Oh, that's not a good typo. Crumplebottom the third. Okay, so the opening line it gives us is, "'Tis my first day of searching for this dratted gate. If anyone is reading this, I am Archibald Crumplebottom III, a stranger in these lands. I've been cast out of a stately manor that I had not realized was inhabited, and the last time I saw these surroundings they were tame and gentle. Now I must hasten through a harsh and shifting landscape before that lady's hunters find me. Goodness knows how they shall reward my trespassing." Okay. We rolled our dice, and that gave us cards. You draw that number of cards in the deck, leave them face down. This represents the task that you have to undertake on your journey. Reveal the first card and consult the Wanderer's Guide, Sire Crumplebottom. Witchery says Agnes Crumplebottom is a cranky old lass. But a proud bottom crumpler she was. Okay. First card is... Can I read that? 3 of diamonds. Let's see what that gives us. Now, the way this game is structured is they want you to reveal them all, resolve them all, and then write the entry. And I just don't trust my memory. I feel like that's going to be me looking back on these things repeatedly. So we're going to deal with them one at a time, writing a little bit about them each time. But I'll try not to get too... I say this every time, and I never succeed. I always say I'm just going to try and make them brief, and then we can get through the game and sort of get a story structure out. And then it's like 6 sentences of me talking about moss. This is diamonds, right? Why not just put it next to them? Okay, 3. Crossing a glen. You hear a cheerful humming. An old woman is perched on high, harvesting mistletoe with a bronze sickle. She speaks kindly to you, though you do not understand, and tosses down a wrapped bundle of leaves. You thank her and pocket them, still unsure what she expects you to do with them. Do we have any opinions of what she should look like? I have a dry mouth today. I'm going to be drinking a lot of water. Big Drew says, I'm late. Darn after work naps. Hey. This is not better than a nap. That'll be my catch line when I advertise this seriously, and that'll surely make me a millionaire. Slightly better than a nap. Okay. Nah. Any ideas you have for making these Feywilds weird and memorable? Go for it. And put it in the chat. Even if I don't work it in right away, it's good to have that pool of ideas forming. It could be ankle-biting mushrooms. It could be waters that reflect a different world. It could be I don't know. Birds with human faces. There's lots of things. Okay, so the land was indeed a different place than any I had ever seen. I took a quick sprint and soaked into my woolen suit and sweat it out. I don't know. Let's say sweat it out. Sweat it out. My woolen suit before it began to occur to me that maybe I could make no distance great enough to hide from the lady's impending hunt. Susie the Bear Girl says, maybe like an old hag, witchy vibes? Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then Witchery says, also, hey, I'm the witchy vibes, and I'm not an old hag. I am, at worst, an adult hag. How about a mature hag? Even if I were not so learned in the folk stories of the Feylands, I would surely have figured it out. I'm just gonna take my first idea. When the mushrooms of sickly royal colors grew a maw of sharp teeth and tore away much of my left sock as I ran past. Even... who was that guy who traveled around in a ship and just ate everything? Like he'd eaten every meat. Wasn't Darwin, was it? I was gonna say, I know that Darwin did have a thing about eating a lot of things, but there was a guy who specifically, like, every time he went somewhere, he would hunt a thing and eat it and see how it tasted. Oh. If it seems like I fidget a lot, it's because I may have slightly broken my toe. Grew a maw of sharp teeth and tore away much of my left sock. Even the fine, I'll just use Darwin. Even the journals of that well-traveled scientist Charles Darwin made no mention of such carnivorous fungi. This was no earthly land. So it was a great surprise for me to find... what did we decide on? Or did we... I think we got off track and... well, not off track. There's no track with this stream. It's just whatever. But I don't think we had a preferred description of her. So... old woman perched on a high harvesting mistletoe with a bronze sickle. Me to find a fairly plain old woman, balanced on a thin but on a crooked thin mistletoe branch. Did it branch? Mistletoe, is that a bush or a tree? It occurs to me I've never actually looked at it. Looking it up now, nobody needs to explain it. I have to actually look at it. I am seeing a tree that looks like it has shrubs glued to it. What a weird looking tree. Huh. It literally just looks like a regular tree, but then parts of it somebody has like thrown a bush in. The ones that I'm seeing. It's wild. Witchery says mistletoe is like a vine and it can strangle trees. Oh, is that what's happening? Because it certainly doesn't look overly connected. Well, now I'm curious and I gotta look it up. A hemiparasitic plant. They're attached to their tree or shrub by a structure called a hausatorium, through which they... I don't have it really here. We don't have mistletoe trees, so I don't know. Doesn't Mario have mushrooms with teeth? Mario has Goombas. How dare you call them mushrooms? My God. I'm kidding. They aren't mushrooms, but they're basically mushrooms. Okay, well, today I learned. But thin... to find a fairly plain old woman balanced on a crooked but thin branch of a well-dead tree, woven with the emerald tufts of parasitic mistletoe. There you go. I don't normally do research on the stream because it is boring to watch, but when I write I do, because usually you get ideas. Witchery says, we don't either. Oh, do you not? But one needs to know these things for witchy and Yuletide reasons. Ah. I should know more about that, but I genuinely, consistently forget. The tradition I know best is the well, the ones related to the wild hunt because of I always mix it up whether it's solstice or equinox. But the 12 days of Christmas, in other words, the feasting of Nordic people. Susie the Bear Girl says Goomba are based off chestnuts? Is that what they say? Because I find that a hard sell. I believe you. I don't know what if Nintendo has really sold that. So it was a great surprise for me to find a fairly plain old woman balanced on a crooked but thin branch of a well-dead tree woven with the emerald tufts of parasitic mistletoe. She swung back and forth, leaning like a tightrope carnival act against the swing from side to side. She swung a bronze scythe back and forth, leaning like a tightrope carnival act against these to counterbalance the swing, I guess. Leaning like a tightrope carnival act on, what would you call that when they put their feet like that? Hatched feet? Witchery says Yule is a solstice. Yeah, I don't trust my knowledge on this because I got it wrong about half the time. I know that one of them is in September. What it genuinely is that I have an actual problem with names to the extent that I probably have an actual problem with names. I forget names constantly. I mean, I feel like that's hatched feed. Like a tightrope carnival act. It's not really crosshatched, but let's not hang on this forever. I'm done with the sentence. I don't think I'm going to make it work any better. I peeled off my evening coat and huffed from sweaty lips a polite greeting. Well, she does speak to... Oh, I see. But we don't understand. She drew a smile just ever so slightly too wide that showed just maybe a few more teeth than one might expect. And spoke. She had a melody and warmth to her voice that drew me in like a dinner bell. Yet I understood not one of her words. She didn't seem to wait for a response. But then tossed down a bundle of strange... give me a color, chat. Color for the leaves that isn't typical. I mean, the obvious one is purple, I guess, but what else? I'm waiting for someone to be snarky and say green. Bright pink, perfect. The bright pink of a poisoned sunset. Oh my god, everybody got one bright pink, silver, turquoise, magenta. I should ask for more colors. These are all good colors. Pink was the first one I got, so I'm going to keep with that. But silver is also very clever. Turquoise, it'd be cool if it had the translucency of the turquoise stone. And magenta, the very best colors. Actually, I'm a green person. I like green, but the close second is magenta. But then toss down a bundle of strange leaves that were a bright pink reminiscent of a poisoned sunset. Would a person of that time know that that's what causes bright colors in a sunset? Probably not. But this is first drafts. They were wrapped in a strange pale leather. That was tacky in spots, as poorly cured leather sometimes is. When I looked back up, she returned to her scything as if I were not even there. Susie the Bear Girl says green is a good color. Yeah, it's hard to imagine why anybody made another color. I mean, once you got to green, what does it matter? The other colors are going to be worse, obviously. Okay, let's pull a card, and then I'm going to try and introduce the concept of the wild hunt, or not even the wild hunt, just a hunt in general, because the wild hunt is really diverse. I could spend this whole stream talking about the various versions of the wild hunt because I love it. And as much as I love The Witcher 3, I will say they definitely are doing their own thing there. The wild hunt is very, very diverse. The Witcher 3 doesn't do anything wrong. My point is more so that so many people come and tell me who've only really seen The Witcher 3's version about what the wild hunt is and isn't. And the wild hunt is a variety of things. It comes up in many, 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 many cultures, and they're very different. All the way from, even within Germany, there is ones that accounts of the regional ones that account for it as the devil. Sometimes it's a hunter who was sort of cursed to hunt forever. But my favorite one is Frau Gauden, who exclaimed one day that she would forego the joys of heaven for the joys of the hunt, and was cursed to hunt forever with her 30 daughters, who turned to hounds and ride with her. Okay, 9 of clubs. I guess clubs are at the end. Or not clubs, sorry, yes, spades. Duh. 9. Chill winds blow across the face of this land as the year slides towards winter. Thoughts of warm fires and spiced wine fill your mind. What was your home like? If you were to return now, would you be welcome? I don't know. What is their home like? Guys, give me some... I'm going to do a little interstitial thing here to drop in some references to being hunted, so there's some tension in the story. But the... I am curious what my life... Was I a loser? Was I a rich kid? Who is... I've forgotten her own name. Archibald something. She returned to scything as if I were not even there. I may have pressed on for more information from the kind old lady. But with the blink of an eye, it was night. And with the next blink, it was day. Time moved strangely in these Feywilds. The skies of the newborn morning were not so bright as the day before, though. Oily, black clouds, more smoke. In form than anything natural. Crackled with bright collected on every horizon I could see from atop the knoll. Where the old woman scythed the mistletoe. It crackled with blinding light, and the winds brought the sour stench of sulfur with the rolling thunder. Something was coming. With no time to rest, I kept my march on and away from the old woman. She would speak no more to me. As I followed the only trail I could see, not beset by strange winding plants with dripping thorns. Okay, we got a few ideas here. Home life is rough. A trouble follows you that strains your relationship with your closest friends and family. Ooh, I wonder what that is. Maybe he doesn't admit it to himself. GS says, I think Archibald would be of some status due to his title, the Third. Or he could be pretentious. Genera says, or is new money and thinks of himself as a lord. All that bottom crumpling finally paid off. That's what I laughed at. Okay, I like these ideas. Okay, so what's the least cliched way for me to work that in? This might be too convoluted, but I do kind of have a backstory. I'm not going to jam it in its all its details, but at least I have one in mind. I followed the only trail I could see that was not beset on either side by strange winding plants with dripping thorns. Unfortunately, while this did take me away from the encroaching storms, it left me in a damp and in a damp gully of some layered stone. That was stained ruby red. Wait, that was stained shades of red. Which were darkest down at the bottom, where the narrow trail ended. What does the word "wend" mean again? I've used it before, but it's been a while. I'm looking this up. Go in a specific direction. Oh, "wended" is right. Okay. I don't know. It just felt like it was wrong. Mm-hmm. Maybe? Does it know that word? Consider changing to "ended." Well, that's just a different word. It means a different thing. I'm sure somebody's going to say the trail can't wend because it's obviously a verb about walking. I've never been that worried about those details. I find that all my favorite writers characterize things with human words and verbs. But we'll see. Maybe I'll change my mind eventually. Which were darkest down at the bottom by the narrow trail that wended on forward. The winds of the lands above caught on that's not being too inventive, right? Let's just get a sentence out. The winds of the lands swept through with ice, swept through the gully near Genera says, I forgot the word for it, but it's when you describe something as though it were a person. I mean, this isn't the word you're thinking of. I know what you're talking about, but the one that comes to mind is anthropomorphized, but that's a bit different in its actual meaning. GS says the winds carried a shimmer on them. Oh, good idea. The winds of the land swept through the gully. Swept through the gully with the force of a whistle. The force of a giant's whistle. This is a terrible sentence. They carried on them silver dust that clung to my skin, clung to my sweat. And turned me something to something of reminiscent of chipped, cheap silverware. Tia says, I don't know if the shimmer is good or bad, but I'm attracted to it. I'd like to believe that's just you talking about yourself. And turn to something reminiscent of chipped cheap silverware. But the scent, that's what stood out. For it carried the smell of nutmeg, cinnamon, mace, and winter herbs, like a fine spiced wine. It brought my thoughts to my manor, won through hard work under the crumple bottom trade. But also one by means I did not wish to recall. I wondered if this strange land knew I had broken my word to my old partners, family, knew I had invested their portion and left them to fight the winter alone. Was this merely punishment? Madness. No one knows my thoughts. I was just becoming paranoid. GS says, I'm still working on what the trade of crumple bottom entails. Okay, let's pull another card. My god, we're already at an hour. It is a 9 of diamonds. Means it's about the others. It says you see firelight in the wood and hope for some cheer and warm food. Well, that connects well with the smell and the wind. You steal closer. Around the fire are a great many beasts dancing to a frantic piping. You would find it comical, if not the frenzied notes and malign baying. You leave when a black goat, many-horned, turns slowly to gaze at you with brazen gold and eyes. Pull from the tower. Oh my god, we finally got a pull from the tower one. Janera says, I'm thinking either butt massage or some kind of fashion trend in men's pants. Pants. Succeed as a crumple zone for your carriage. Alright. Oh, when you pull from the tower, you roll the dice, and how many you roll is how... Oh my god. It's 6. I rolled a 6. Means I have to pull from this tower 6 times. At an awkward angle, no less. Well, the first ones are going to be easy. Okay, that's 3. I wish there was some way to get people to, like, give me advice on which one to take. 4. Oops. God, this is very awkward. 5. 6. I don't know how many loose ones I have left. GS says, then you could blame us. I think it's less about, like, blaming and more about just increasing a sense of participation, right? Like, if people want to screw me up, they could, but it's okay. We survive. Okay, what are our thoughts on this? We see people dancing around a fire. I mean, it's a fairly standard thing to see in this sort of setting. But we need some action here. Like, there's been a lot of wandering the Feywilds, and as much as that is fun for me to write, that's not a story. Witchery says, this is precisely why I don't play Wretched and Alone. I actually really quite like Wretched and Alone. The problem, of course, is that Wretched and Alone has this problem that the first few pulls, there's not a ton of tension because it's fine. And then as it starts to go on, it starts to become... It has 2 problems. First of all, if you're playing with multiple people, when the tower falls, then you have to set it back up unless you have, like, 4 towers to work with. Anyways. It has problems with pacing, is what I'm trying to say, just as a system. Okay. Still lacking any other leads. I followed the scent and was met with a terror. I'm going to sort of play up the terror of it. Come on, brain. I feel like I never really came online today. Ever have one of those days? I followed the scent and was met with a terrible sight of... I mean, we got to assume this is like, at least, he's probably Catholic or Anglican or something, so of pagan excess. This is me being in character. No offense meant. Beasts. Creatures of human and beast form, born from some wretched and unhallowed wombs. It's getting very, this is getting very, Lovecraft. GS Space Cadet days? Yes. Yeah, I'm a Space Cadet today. Pranced while blowing... Plowing? While blowing with puffed cheeks on carved reeds. Reed flutes. No, just carved flutes. Genera says, no offense taken, it's the Victorian era. True. They like the traditions. They just like to pretend they came up with them. While blowing with puffed cheeks on carved flutes. Creatures of human and beast form, born from some wretched and unhallowed wombs, pranced while blowing with puffed cheeks on carved flutes. Their melodies were as enchanting as they were broken and excessive. Cacophonic howls. Reminiscent of painful cries and animal and guttural animalistic growls. I don't know. This parade of decadence that stained the ground with cloudy wine spilled from goblets of bone. Sure. Witchery says the Victorian era was weirdly full of occultists. It was kind of a, yeah, it was like publicly you were all very upright, and then there was this sort of secret fascination with it. But it wasn't really anything pagan going on. It was just a bunch of people doing like hat tricks with crystal balls and stuff. It wasn't, going to rituals. Yeah, Genera says, good point, though I think they viewed it more as a novelty. Yes. Yeah. It was an era of like, ooh, did you hear? It wasn't really anybody cared about the culture of anything. That stained the ground with cloudy wine spilled from goblets of bored out skulls, some still hanging with leathered flesh and drying eyes. There we go. Now we're getting to more horror. Their words had no meaning to me, but words had no meaning to me. And yet I understood this was revelry before violence. Like soldiers before a char, the night before a charge. GS says Dorothy wants to get back to Kansas. Oz is too scary. I wonder how much Wizard of Oz is based on the notion of Fey realms. Because to be honest, when you read old folklore, there's references to Fey realms, but they rarely get much description. You at most get taken to a castle or something. And, it can be at the bottom of the ocean or whatever. But it's not really, they do very light world building, and there isn't a lot of description of strangeness. You get more of that as you get into like Victorian era writing and weird fiction when it starts to pick up, but they're not really drawing on folklore. They're sort of filling in blanks with some new ideas of their own. Yeah. Like soldiers the night before a charge. Or hunters before the hunt. It was clear to me that the fine spices which boiled I had smelled emanated from a cauldron. Let's not be too inventive here, it's a cauldron. From a cauldron strung over a wild and bright bonfire. A stew of some unknown nature. The storm clouds were thickest here, forming to thunder and lightning from the rising smoke of their fire, I guess. I don't have another word for it. The winds turned again, but carried this time not spice and silver, I gotta put, okay, the winds turned towards me. Against me? Winds turned against me, yet carried with them not spice and silver, but that stench of sulfur. I gagged against the oily smoke and the music stopped. I blinked my eyes to clear the soot. And I saw the moon had come up high in only a moment. The camp was turned towards the shrub where I crouched, silent and glaring with golden eyes. I did not know if I should run or gamble that they did not yet see me. With a blink, The day came, and with it, the clouds had collected over the lands so thickly the sun was dim and orange behind them. The party had disappeared, but now the shrubs crackled with shuffling life. Large and small were swirling in the woods about me. I know that's not everything about the prompt, but let's pull another one. This is a King of Spades. And that'll probably be our last one, actually. See if it gives us something we can go out on, or if this will be one of those sort of half-finished stories. You left the road in search of a better route. It has not served you well. Well, we're going to be running in a minute. You can feel the trees and undergrowth swarming around you. Oh, wow, blocking your way. In a moment of intense weariness, you are sure you catch a tree moving out of the corner of your eye. Hours of scrambling does no good, and soon you are exhausted, resting against an old oak. You close your eyes. You awaken in time to see roots grasp at your ankles. Do not discard this card. Place where you can see it. If this is the fourth king you have drawn, you are consumed by the earth, and the game is over. Okay. How about, instead, because I do not have time to roll them 4 more of these things, I'm going to roll this, pull more, and see how I do. And then we'll wrap up on that. Come on! It's another 6. Well, I only got... It bounced off the table and rolled back to a 6. How is that even possible? Is this thing only a 6? Okay, well, I think my character might die. Ugh. Okay, like, you know how Jenga always has the easy ones first? And, like, everyone goes for them and, like, nothing's supporting them? I'm kind of through the easy ones. Oh my god. That's 1, 2. Like, if anything, I'm underselling this. Three. There's only 1. This whole thing is landing on 1 right now. 4. Can I get this one out? It's in there tight. 5. Okay, we're gonna do the 6th one. And then we're gonna live. We're gonna live. Nope, that's not it. Well, this one might be it. I think we might do it. Although it... I don't know if that showed up on camera, but we almost lost it there. Nothing to it. Wasn't even worried at all. Witchery says lucky 6. Yeah, I know. Like, when I roll this thing for D&D, it doesn't give me 6s. I'm going to roll it again. What am I going to get? Oh my god, I got a 6. Okay, finally, a 1. There we go. I'm gonna have to use that dice more, apparently. Okay, so... cackling with laughter and suckling at their own drooling lips. I could wait no longer and began to run. But from where? The sky itself that was turning to form some streak, narrowing towards me from the bushes. That rustled with life and that rustled with menace. Out of the corners of my eyes, I caught a sway of trees that were still when I turned to them, yet somehow closer. The whole woods were moving inward towards me. I could feel the shadows grow over me. The path, the game trail I was on, dissolved away to encroaching vines that grew before my eyes. Then began the numbness. My hand went numb, and when I looked to it, I was holding a dagger. And cutting into my own thigh. Though I felt none of it. I shrieked and wrestled with one hand against the other. I lost my music for some reason. There we go. Until I stumbled into a grove, exhausted, and slumped against a tree. My body grew ever numb, but I could watch how the roots and vines crept over me. I was helpless. And bound to the ground by the strange flora. It was then I saw the gate that I had so long sought. Before me, bright and pure, I struggled against the roots, but I couldn't feel anything. Whatever paralyzing potion in my blood, it was taking me. I saw it as a curse. But when the grove began to fill with those golden-eyed beasts and their tools of butchery, and when they began to pull the deadwood together for another fire, and when they began to cut away the finest cuts of me, I found myself quite thankful for its effects. After all. There you go. I killed him anyways. Who wants to play this game and have you live? Okay. I see that Big Drew's been working on his story, and I'm going to read back my story. And after that, we'll call it. Come on, pick up the cards. We got through 4 cards? Okay. I was going to say 3 cards I feel like we should have gotten through faster. The last card was a 5 of clubs, because we only have 1 left. I'm curious what that one was. I don't think we had 1 from the clubs, but did we? Almost everywhere you go, you feel like you can hear the hoofbeats of hunters Feel their eyes on you. It takes its toll. How does the strain of being hunted manifest most plainly? Okay. Now, one thing that it says in an optional rule for the game is you can just pull the Ace of Hearts and put the 10 tokens on it so that there is already like a clear victory condition. Because really, you know, it could be the last card you pull, right? And you're not going to last that long. But that depends on how you want to interpret the game. Okay, let's see what we made up, folks. And there we go. Okay. If you're coming to this part of the show, it's because you just want to know the results. We played a game called The Treacherous Realm, which was a wretched and alone system, which means it used Jenga blocks. The fallen over Jenga blocks we'll talk about later. Well, we'll talk about it now, I guess, but why it is going to come out in the story. What happens with Jenga towers is the Jenga towers, instead of rolling a dice when you have a challenge, you would pull blocks out, and if it falls over, you die. So the Treacherous Realm is a game about going to the Fey realm, kind of, or fairy realm, if you don't know that term, unintentionally, and being hunted for it, which we'll see. Yeah, I won't re-explain the rules. That's all you need to do. No. And I call this playthrough All of Us Food That Hasn't Died, which is a Queens of the Stone Age lyric. A Treacherous Realm playthrough, and it starts with the given text. The first paragraph comes directly from the book, and then the rest is ours. "'Tis my first day of searching for this dratted gate. If anyone is reading this, I am Archibald Crumplebottom III, a stranger in these lands. I've been cast out of a stately manor that I did not realize was inhabited, and the last time I saw these surroundings, they were tame and gentle. Now I must hasten through a harsh and shifting landscape before the lady's hunters find me. Goodness knows how they shall reward my trespassing." I'm getting a little drink here. I'm actually going to switch over the music again. "The land was indeed a different place than any I'd ever seen. I took a quick sprint and sweated out my woolen suit before it began to occur to me that maybe I could make no distance great enough to hide from the lady's impending hunt. Even if I were not so learned in the folk stories of the Feylands, I would surely have figured it out when the mushrooms of sickly royal colors grew a maw of sharp teeth and tore away much of my left sock as I ran past. Even the journals of that well-traveled scientist, Charles Darwin, made no mention of such carnivorous fungi. This was no earthly land. So it was a great surprise for me to find a fairly plain old woman balanced on a crooked but thin branch of a well-dead tree woven with the emerald tufts of parasitic mistletoe. She swung a bronze scythe back and forth, leaning like a tightrope carnival act, with cross-hatched feet wrapping the branch. I peeled off my evening coat and huffed from sweaty lips a polite greeting. She drew a smile just ever so slightly too wide, that showed just maybe a few more teeth than one might expect, and spoke. She had a melody and warmth to her, a voice that drew me in like a dinner bell, yet I understood not one of her words. She didn't seem to wait for a response, but then tossed down a bundle of strange leaves that were a bright pink, reminiscent of a poisoned sunset. They were wrapped in a strange, pale leather that was tacky in spots, as poorly cured leather sometimes is. When I looked back up, she returned to scything as if I were not even there. I may have pressed on for more information from the kind old lady, but with the blink of an eye it was night, and with the next blink it was day. Time moved strangely in these Fey wilds. The skies of the newborn morning were not so bright as the day before, though. Oily black clouds more smoke in form than anything natural, collected on every horizon I could see from atop the knoll where that old woman scythed the mistletoe. It crackled with blinding light, and winds brought, not thesaurus, the stench of sulfur. With the rolling thunder, something was coming. With no time to rest, I kept my march on and away from the old woman. She would speak no more to me anyways. I followed the only trail I could see that was not beset on either side by strange winding plants with dripping thorns. Unfortunately, while this did take me away from the encroaching storms, it left me in a damp gully of some layered stone that was stained shades of red, which were darkest down at the bottom by the narrow trail that wended on forward to the other end. The winds of the land slept through that gully with the force of a giant's whistle. They carried on them silver dust that clung to my sweat and turned me something reminiscent of chipped, cheap silverware. But the scent, for that's what stood out, it carried was the smell of nutmeg, cinnamon, mace, and winter herbs, like a fine spiced wine. It brought my thoughts to my manor, one through hard work under the crumple-bottom trade, but also one by means I did not wish to recall. I wondered if this strange land knew I had broken my word to my old partner's family, knew I had invested his portion after his passing and left his family to fight the winter alone. Was this merely punishment? Madness. No one knows my thoughts. I was just becoming paranoid. Still, lacking any other leads, I followed the scent and was met with a terrible sight of pagan excess, creatures of human and beast form born from some wretched and unhallowed wombs, pranced while blowing with puffed cheeks on carved flutes. Their melodies were as enchanting as they were broken and excessive cacophonic howls reminiscent of painful cries and guttural animalistic growls. This parade of decadence that stained the ground with cloudy wine spilled from goblets of bored-out skulls, some still hanging with leathered flesh and drying eyes. Their words had no meaning to me, and yet I understood this was revelry before violence, like soldiers the night before a charge, or hunters before the hunt. It was clear to me that the fine spices I had smelled emanated from a cauldron strung over a wild and bright bonfire, a stew of some unknown nature. The storm clouds were thickest here, forming a sky of thunder and lightning from the rising smoke of their fire. The winds turned against me, yet carried with them time, not spice, and yet carried with them time. This time, that's what that meant to say. Not spice and silver, but that stench of sulfur. I gagged against the oily smoke, and the music stopped. I blinked my eyes to clear the soot, and I saw the moon had come up high in only a moment. Now the camp was turned towards the shrub where I crouched. They were silent and glaring with golden eyes. I did not know if I should run or gamble that they had not seen me yet and had only heard. With a blink, though, the day came, and with it the clouds had collected over the land so thickly the sun was dim and orange behind them. The party had disappeared, but in its place the shrubs crackled now with shuffling life. Large and small were swirling in the woods about me, cackling with laughter and suckling at their own drooling lips. I could wait no longer and began to run, but from where to where? The sky itself was turning to form some streak narrowing towards me. From the bushes that rustled with menace, out of the corners of my eyes, I caught the sway of trees that were still when I turned to them, yet somehow ever closer. The woods were moving inwards towards me. I could feel their shadows grow over me. The game trail I was on dissolved away to encroaching vines that began to grow and reach before my very eyes. And then began the numbness. First my hand went numb, and when I looked to it, I had found it was holding a dagger, strange and crooked, that cut into my own thigh as if it were meat. Though I felt none of it. I shrieked and wrestled with one hand against the other until I stumbled into a grove, exhausted, and slumped against a tree. My body now grew ever numb, but I could watch how the roots and vines were creeping over me. I was helpless and bound to the ground by the strange flora. It was then I saw the gate I had so long sought, before me bright and pure. I struggled against those growing roots, but I couldn't feel anything, and I could not stand. Whatever paralyzing potion in my blood, it was taking me fully. I saw it as a curse at first, but when the grove began to fill with those golden-eyed beasts and their tools of butchery, and when they began to pull the dead wood together for another fire before me, and when they began to cut away the finest cuts of me, I found myself quite thankful for its numbing effects after all. Somewhere in there I would work in that the leaves that they were given were used as a spice. They would pour them in to the cauldron if I was to rewrite it. Okay, so that means it's Drew's story. And then we're out. Big Drew says you referenced Queens of the Stone Age. I saw them live on Monday. Did you see them in Vancouver on Tuesday? I'm still at the point where I'm not going to big outings. I'm not going to big outings. But I have seen them live probably a dozen times. They are far and away my favorite band. Although I've not been too hot on the last few albums. I think they're okay, but they're not blowing me away the way the first few did. And GS says that is a gruesome and daunting ending. Well, they were being kind. They numbed them. All right. Let's see if I can find the beginning of Big Drew's story. Man, there's a lot of chat tonight. That's not a bad thing. At all. The day began to grow long, and I thought a moment, surely that ominous painting isn't as haunted as it looks. This abandoned mansion is probably safer than walking home alone in the dark woods alone. And with that, I hurled myself into the royal blue, tufted velvet armchair before me. I paid no mind to the spiderwebs in the corner. The clouds of dust when I sat down was palpable, however. I woke with a shiver of chill and a quiver in my stomach. Like clockwork, I thought to myself, what's for breakfast? A rumble shook the walls, and I knew it was time to make my escape. The seemingly haunted picture from the night before had vanished in the night, which told me I wasn't alone, and the door left ajar explained the chilling draft. But what on earth was that rumble? I made my way outside and was flabbergasted to see a real-life, honest-to-God dragon. Columns of smoke billowed into the stratosphere off in the distance, and I felt an unease in the pit of my stomach. Breakfast might be tough to find this morning. I found a nearby shrub upon which to relieve myself and made my way towards 7-Eleven for some nachos and a hot dog. It may not be good food, but if I die today, which is looking pretty probable, at least I'll do it with a full stomach. From 7-Eleven, maybe. I picked up an axe as I made my way past the garage and slung it over my shoulder and muttered, there's an effing dragon out there. Who knows what else I may encounter. Might as well get a big gulp, too. The green and white sign beckoned me from a great distance, and as I made my way to the door, I was aghast to find the wealth of humanity crammed inside like sardines in a can. I forced myself inside. Anybody know what the hell happened last night? I shouted over the horde. They all mass grumbled in unison. Dragon woke up. Somebody slept in the chair. Was this damnation my doing, I wondered. I nodded, then asked, are we screwed, or is that damn thing gonna go back to sleep? The horde muttered under a collective breath before a child spoke. Dragon gotta die. Otherwise we're boned. I've seen movies. We got the military on this, yeah? The shopkeeper said, yeah, Dragon Defense was activated. Feel bad for that poor bastard that woke him up, though, the horde chortled and snorted. A dragon won't die till he eats the fool that spoiled his slumber. It's what makes him mortal again, said a man who identified as Gomer. I backed slowly from the horde, and just before heading out, heard Rufus the town drunk rear up from his stupor and chatter out, unless that poor bastard gets to him first. Big Drew says, seems my fate has been sealed. I must track and slaughter the beast or die myself. A shadow loomed large over the parking lot as I made my way outside. Darcibus, a legend told me, was the name of our scaly-winged beast. Fortunately, he did not breathe fire, but unfortunately, he did breathe acid-spewing piranha. I sought out a trainer on my way to Mount Dragduel, but none were willing to risk their lives or reputation. I was forced to go it alone, pulling from Rocky, Team America, and Shaun of the Dead, and what little I could recall of Yoda training Luke. Well, there was very little training of Luke. As far as I can tell, he got him to do some flips and lift a ship. I made myself nominally better, and with that, it was time to fight a freaking dragon. I hurled fistfuls of pebbles into its den, hoping to catch a stupid lizard in a power-drunk daze, or maybe even asleep, but the last thing I saw was an angry black monster pulling back its blood-stained, gnashing fangs before a stream of acid-spewing piranha consumed parts of me, leaving me a bloodied but still conscious one-armed stump of a man before the beast drew me in. With my one remaining arm and partially functioning brain, I drew my axe and began racking away at the beast's throat from the inside. An unpleasant side effect of the acidic fish is the devastation they cause your throat. A few half-hearted whacks, and I'd found daylight. A few more, and I'd beheaded the monster. As I laid atop Mount Dragduel, I began to wonder what type of life I'd live now as the stumpy savior of my town, met by an angry mob of people who were prepared to welcome the sweet embrace of death. Well, damn, I thought to myself as the remains of me were stuck on a pike. Left for dead, the crows finished me off, and my final thought, how apropos that my fate would be decided by screaming winged birds cloaked in black. I drew my final breath. I like the conceit there that only he can kill the dragon. That's a good one. Well, with that said, if you enjoyed the stream, as always, you can give it a like. I always appreciate that. It doesn't really do anything else for me because, you need like 100 likes to even begin to register on the algorithm. It's just a way of saying, hey, thanks. And if you enjoy stuff like this, or if you like folklore in general, on Tuesdays we do folklore read-alongs of recently translated old lore from various places. And beyond that, I'm going to go off and enjoy my weekend. And Big Drew, I think my outro screen is very suiting to your story. You'll see why in a moment. For the rest of you, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Get out of my shop.